Hi everybody, my name is Jeff Benyon and I'm a portrait photographer here in San Diego, California. And I'm here in the lobby of my studio right now. A few days ago we were lucky enough to have model Jenny B come out into town, and she did a boudoir workshop for us. And one of the things that I did in advance of that is I prepared some material on lighting and posing, and I wanted to share some of that with you. This stuff of course is universal. It applies to fashion photography, lifestyle photography. It's just all about how to use studio lights to create a certain mood and a certain look. And also I go into some things about posing, some tips about posing. So I put together that presentation and I recorded it, and what I want to do with you right now is I want to go over those slides and show you that recording, and I'm going to overlay the slides over the recording so that you can see it, because the slides weren't captured in the video recording that we did. So here's what we've got, and then after I'm done with that, I'm going to show you some of the setups that we had, show you some behind the scenes footage of the workshop that we did, which was awesome, and then I'm going to show you some of the final images. We'll see how they turned out. Thank you everyone for coming. I just wanted to, the point of this little presentation is I wanted to show you some of the things that we're going to be working through for the next 4 hours in this workshop. One of the reasons why I wanted to do a boudoir workshop is because in boudoir you focus a lot on posing and lighting, and it's a lot more important in boudoir than it is in some things with fashion, because it's about accentuating the form of the body and playing with the light, how it reflects off the face, off all the different curves and edges of the body. And so posing and lighting is a lot more important, I think, in boudoir photography than it is in, say, like fashion, where in fashion photography and stuff like that, it is still really important, but it's a lot more critical in this. And so we're going to go over some of the just general aspects of lighting and some of the things that we're going to try to do over the next 4 hours, and then we're going to decide what the looks that we're going to do, and then we're going to create those looks. My goal today is to not have a workshop where our number one goal is to fill up our memory cards as much as we can, but I want to have a workshop where we take deliberate shots, where we plan what we're going to do, we have in our mind an idea, and then we create that image, all right? So I put together this little presentation to kind of go over what we're going to do, and so what we're going to cover here is some stuff about lighting, some things about poses, and then camera lens choice. So the goal with lighting is we want to try to use highlights and shadows to create depth and dimension. So I've got like 3 balls here, 3 circles. The first one is just an example of flat lighting. It's just a lot of light from the front, all the shadows, all the highlights are drowned out, and you just see that that is in fact a circle. And then we have a little bit more here in play with the highlights and the shadows on it. And then the third one is a real example of some dramatic lighting where you can definitely tell that that's a ball, and it's got some great ratio of highlights and shadows on it. So one of the things that we want to do is, this is a before and after picture of the exact same picture. I recorded this shoot on a video camera, and so this is the same moment that I took this picture. One of the things that we want to do, so this is the picture on the left, the big screen picture. This is the ambient light that was in the room. And you can tell it's horrible. I mean, like, it's okay. I mean, it's good because you're there, but like, if you weren't there, this would be horrible, right? So we don't want to use the ambient light. What I like to do when I'm shooting is set my camera, set the ambient area where I'm shooting so that I'm drowning out entirely the ambient light. So I can either do that by turning off the lights, or I can do it by adjusting my camera settings so that without any strobes, it's completely pitch black. I don't want any of the nasty ambient light. I want all of the light that I am going to be shooting to be intentional, to be placed by me, and to be controlled by me, because I want to choose how the light wraps around her body, where the shadows are, where it creates like the depth and the mystery and the mood of the story. All right, so this is the picture, and then this is the one in the corner that has color to it. That one is actually the picture taken by my camera, which is pretty close to a straight out of camera shot. This was, you can kind of see in the main one, we lit this one with a 7-foot umbrella that was relatively close because we were shooting in a tiny room. And so we're going to talk about softness of light too, how it creates like the gentle, the wrap of light around her and the soft light and stuff. But you can see the difference between ugly light and intentional light. So we want to get rid of all of the unintentional light and we want to shoot with just intentional light. Now the next thing I want to talk about is lighting, hard lighting versus soft lighting. Now I use both. So I'm not going to say that one lighting style is better than the other. Hard lighting just means it's a sharp contrast between the shadows and the highlights. So this is a picture of Andrea. This is really contrasty lighting. You can see her face is lit and then it quickly goes to dark. Okay, so this is hard lighting. And then here's soft lighting with my friend. And you can see on her face, it's just a gradual drop in light from one side to the next. So it's just a nice soft wrap. Now if I go back here, the way that we create hard light versus soft light has to do with two things. The choice of modifier that we use and the choice of where we put that modifier. So this was lit, that sticking out right there on the right is a 36-inch umbrella. And it's about maybe 5 feet away from her. Okay, so if I were to use that exact same umbrella and get it closer to her, it would be soft light. If I were to get this scrim that is being projected on right here, which is a 64 square foot light source, and I were to get that same scrim and put it 30 feet away from someone, that would become a tiny light source. So it's the size of the modifier and also how close it is to them. Okay, so the sun is like a humongous light source, but it's so far away that it creates really contrasty light. If we were to go outside right now in the sun, we would have harsh shadows across our face. So we're going to practice today with using both contrasty light and soft light, and I think they both have their place. It just depends, but when we're doing this, I want us to do it because we're doing it on purpose. And we're going to kind of design the shoot, and then we're going to actually make the shoot. So hard light, soft light. Here's another example. Soft light. She looks better in real life when there's not like a wrinkle across her face. But nice, soft, gradual transition to the shadows. This was this impromptu shoot we did at the beach. We're just racing to get to the airport, and there's just really contrasty shadows. Now, one of the things that, I like contrasty shadows, and I like kind of the fall off into shadow. I think it creates a nice story, creates a nice mood. One of the things I do also with people, this doesn't necessarily pertain to the model du jour, but if I'm shooting someone and they're not really pleased with the way that they look, like if their arms are too thick or their torso's too thick, you can use light and trim just with light and not any Photoshop tricks at all. You can trim like an inch off their waist, an inch off of their arms, right? And make them look a lot thinner by just having stuff fall off into shadow, into blackness. It also just creates a really nice mood, a really nice depth. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the shape of light, okay? So I've got some strip boxes right here. There's a beauty dish, octabox. We got some umbrellas. And then also filling in the shadows. So here's an example of strip lights. Generally speaking, if you get the modifier, right? So there's those strip lights hanging up on the wall. This picture was taken with those strip lights. So if you get the shape of the modifier, of the end of it, where the light source is, right? And then you just follow the dimensions of it out, that's going to be your light pattern. Okay, so we're spraying the model with a pattern of light, and we want to choose which light pattern. So these strip boxes, they create tall light that's really skinny. All right, so these are really good to, you can put them slightly behind, and you get a nice silhouette carving out the form. These were exactly side by side, and So you see that it's got light fall off in the middle, like in the middle of her legs, and just creates like this kind of dramatic contrasty look. And then the one on the right, this was shot with an umbrella, which an umbrella is just a big wide thing that just shoots out a large, broad spread of light to cover a large area. Now the next thing that we have here in our arsenal is we've got the scrim and we've got some reflectors, and what we do with those is we use those to kind of fill in the shadows. All right, so we shoot behind the scrim, or we can use the scrim. It's a white surface, so it reflects light. So if I were to aim a strobe at this scrim right here, the scrim would illuminate, but it wouldn't be really bright. It would just bounce a little bit of light back, and it just fills in a little bit of the shadows in the part that's fading off into blackness. Same thing with the V-flats. Now let me show you the difference on how that looks. Okay, so this is the same picture taken a few seconds apart, and on the left you see it's just completely black. And then on the right you see it's the shadows are filled in a little bit. It's a little less contrasty. Sometimes we want to have that dramatic look. Sometimes we want to have the look on the right. It's just whatever we choose to create. Here's the same thing, filling in the shadows. You can't really see it here on the projector, but on the right side, on her face, there's it's being lit from the left, and then on the right, the shadows don't go completely dark. There's a little bit of light coming in on that side. And on the picture on the left, she's just being lit from one side. So there's no fill in on the shadows, and her face just completely drowns out into black. Here's the same picture we saw of Andrea. On the right, face falls off, and then here we're using a reflector to fill in the shadows. Now we happen to have like blue water, so it was nice colored reflection hitting her face. Now I want to talk about light fall off and power. There's a little bit of math here involved, and basically when we want light to hit someone and then fall off and create shadows on their face or on their body anywhere, and have the shadows be part of on the body before it reaches the end of the body, we need to adjust our lights accordingly. So what happens is, generally speaking, the math is every time you double the distance of the light, you lose 75% of power. So Dennis is sitting about 10 feet away from me right here. So if I were to hit Dennis with light, and I were to hit him with enough light right now to light him up, I would hit Dennis, and then behind him, I would go like another 10 feet, and it would just kind of gently drown out into light, right? And so I would get nice broad light across Dennis, and then it would fade across. Now, if I wanted to just highlight just one part of Dennis's face, I would have to get so close to Dennis that the light would hit his face, and then I would get that 75% drop off when it gets to the side of his face. So if I get really close to Dennis and shoot his face with a light close to him, it's gonna hit his face and then it's gonna fade off. So the closer I get to him, the closer I get to anybody, the more rapid fall off there is. Now if I get close to Dennis and if I'm shooting my light at 1/1 power, it's gonna just totally fry his face. If I'm using the same power back here that I am right up close to him, it's just gonna fry him. He's gonna be totally blown out. So sorry, Dennis. So so what we do is when we move the lights closer, if I have a light that's 4 feet away and I'm shooting it at 1/16 power, right? And it's just illuminating my whole set, and it's also hitting the background, and I don't want it to hit the background. I don't want it to create shadows behind the model. I want it to just hit the model, and then I want it to kind of drown out into shadow. Okay, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna get that light and I'm gonna move it closer. So if it's 4 feet away and I'm shooting it at 1/16 power, and I want it to hit the model and then have that fall off before it hits the wall that's, let's say the wall is 3 feet behind her, I wanna get that light close to her so it hits the model and then drowns out into nothing by the time it hits the wall. So I'll move the light closer, I'll turn the power down because she's gonna get really powerful light hitting her, and then it's gonna fade away before it hits the light. So we're gonna play around with getting the light fall off just right, and that's really cool in Boudoir, accentuating just the form and the figure, the curves and the angles, the edges. And so this right here, you could see this picture on the right, I've got this ballerina, and I wanted to she's just incredibly toned. And I wanted to capture her incredibly toned figure. So I want to do that by creating kind of this silhouette shot, highlighting her form. So I got lights and got them as close as I could to her and turned the power way down, and they hit her, and you could see by the time the lights even reach 3 inches across her thigh, they're already rapidly fading off. All right, that's exactly what I wanted to do. Now to make it more complicated, the other thing we can add into the equation is color of light. Okay, there's light temperature too, which we're not really going to get into, but I like to add a little bit of color. We're going to play around a little bit with some color today. I like to, even if we're not putting color on the model, sometimes I like to put color on the background. Just kind of spice things up a little bit, make things look a little bit different, create a little bit of a different mood. Now posing, accentuating form. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to talk about, we're going to work through this all day, is working with posing and form. Picture on the left, it sucks. Okay, the picture on the right, slightly better. What do I like better about the picture on the right than the picture on the left is, okay, so she's got this incredibly athletic form, she's got this tiny waist, and when she has her arms such that they're blocking her waist, like I can't see her form. So if she pulls her arm back a little bit from her waist, I can see her form. Okay, the picture on the left, I can't really see. I mean, I can tell that she's in shape, but I don't know how much she's in shape. All right. So you always want to try to create like don't let the arms hide the form. So try to create like a little bit of gap. If the model has her arms on the side, create a little bit of gap between the waist and the arms with like a little triangle, and you'll get much better pictures. Likewise, with the picture on the left and the picture on the right here, this is just a matter of lighting. So the picture on the left is, we can't really, I mean, you can see it, but you can't, it's not really very well defined, her form in this picture, because it's drowning off into black. All right, now on the picture on the right, I have it more lit, and it really accentuates her form much better. Now, one of the other things I want to talk about is camera lens choice and intentional distortion, and even unintentional distortion of elements. So you can see in this picture, like you see her foot in the front right, her foot in this picture is like slightly bigger than her head. Her foot in this picture is about the same length of her arm, from her shoulder to her elbow. And she actually, in real life, is a very proportionate person. Like, she doesn't have gigantic feet, but in this picture, she does have a slightly larger foot because it's closer to me. Okay, so it's closer to me, and so it's going to be much bigger because the relative distance of that element of her body compared to my camera lens, it makes it so much bigger than, say, her nose. All right, so the closer you get to someone, the more accentuated things are going to be. Now, it also creates things, and sometimes you want that to happen, okay? Especially in Boudoir. It's really neat sometimes when you're shooting with Boudoir and you want to accentuate different curves, make things look different proportions. You can do that by coming in closer and shooting at a wider angle and getting more roundness to things, making things look larger. But you want to be careful with that. Now I'm going to show some of these pictures here. These are pictures of what not to do. These are of my friend. So
no.
I know. Okay. So one of the things that you want to look out for is when models pose and they'll like put their elbows up like this. Like, try not to get elbows pointing out. Okay. Like, look at this picture. Whenever Jenny poses, like, because she's a pro, her elbows are straight up. Because if she were to draw her elbow down, it would make her elbow flare out and look really big in the picture, okay? So arms straight up is fine. Elbow comes down when it's closer to the camera, it's gonna create a problem, okay? So look out for that. Same thing with chins, okay? The reason why you want someone's face to be on the same plane as your camera is because if they tilt their head back and their chin sticks out, their chin's gonna be bigger. If they tilt their head down, their forehead's gonna be bigger, okay? And especially if someone has a huge forehead or a huge chin or something, or it's the same thing when someone like tilts their head to the side and like, let's say they have big ears or they have a big nose or something like that. Like pay attention to things that are tilted closer to the camera and get them to, if they have something like that, like say you're shooting someone with a huge forehead, don't have them tilt their head forward because your pictures, their forehead's gonna look twice as big in your pictures as it does in real life. Okay, so if you look at the difference between, just look at her lips, all right? And the picture on the left and the picture on the right. The picture on the right, her chin is down, she's on the same plane as the camera, and her face looks more proportionate than the picture on the left. Agree?
It's a totally different angle and pose.
It's a different angle and pose, I agree.
I'm not mad about my chin being big. I don't like my nose looking giant, but my chin doesn't bother me.
I enlarged it in Photoshop for you.
Nice.
Boom.
Thanks.
Joking. So, but like, I have some pictures somewhere where I'm taking a picture of a model and she has her elbow out and it's like, geez, you should play football with that thing, right? So, this is not necessarily an example of that. I just wanted to show you the pose where models put their hands up and their elbows come straight out. It creates a problem. And it's one of those things where you shoot it, it looks awesome when you're there, you're back at home, you're culling your pictures, you're looking at it and you're like, ah, her elbow looks a little bit big. All right, same thing with different things. Nose, forehead, ears, whatever. Okay, so that's it. Everybody, we're gonna play with colors.